Hello and welcome to an Elder Scrolls 6 discussion. This time I'll be discussing what can be done with melee and ranged combat for the next game in Bethesda's franchise. This of course is a fanfiction, and it is unlikely that Bethesda picks this up, and is made solely for the purpose of discussion. I will also not be talking about magic in this video, as I am not very experienced with magic based characters yet. If you enjoy, please leave a like, and if you dislike, please leave a dislike. Let's get started. The first distinction we would have to make in terms of combat in the Elder Scrolls is that of traditional RPG combat versus action combat. RPG combat being combat that is mostly reliant on character stats that are applied when a player is attacking or getting attacked, like in Morrowind and Oblivion, while action combat is combat that is reliant on the player's skills or actions exclusively, while stats offer some sort of passive abilities, which is what Skyrim tried to do. Many players were upset that Skyrim's downgrade of complexity by getting rid of things like classes and complex stats that go beyond health, stamina, and magicka. I wasn't. But rather, that is not to say that I like Skyrim's system. I simply think that it's a good base from which to work with, and it is a basis that I will use for this theoretical implementation of combat. Now let's assume that Bethesda goes back to include more of the RPG stat-based system. What could they do to improve? In my opinion, I think it should work in a combination of the same way it does now, with a hint of what Oblivion did in passives, while you level up using your skills. The numeric grade of the bars would increase from increments of 10 to something more suitable for this system, kinda like an MMORPG like with the hundreds and thousands of health and things like that. And upon leveling, you will get 2 perks and 3 points to place into stats such as health, stamina, magicka, acrobatics, or any other category that would be worthy of being a main stat. Or you can invest one of those stat points into a particular skill to level it up quicker. In order to even be able to use a skill, or in order to not be absolute garbage at it, you would have to spend a perk point on it. Thus, the level up system provides more perks to allow you to define your character. So while anyone can pick up a dagger and swing, you shouldn't be able to learn a shock spell until you spend 1 point in destruction, and your skill with your blade will be nothing unless you start investing in one-handed. The Oblivion side of this would come in the form of taking all the stat percentage perks and getting rid of them. Instead of that, you would unlock those perks as the skill with a certain skill went up. This way you can open up more space for interesting perks. For instance, in archery, instead of getting 20% damage to bows in a perk, you can choose things like gaining draw speed the more you attack, increasing power the longer you draw your bow, which should be affected by stamina as explained later, or use magicka to either enchant your arrow with an element or making it ignore physics, causing it to travel until it hits a target or goes to Aetherius. Overall, from the traditional RPG side of things, I would like things to be more mathematically deep, but not overwhelming, and using the perk interface to provide the seed for action-based combat. Moving on to action-based combat. Physical combat in the Elder Scrolls has been very stale, and although Skyrim improved the feel of it, it is still simplistic. For archery, you aim, you shoot, and you one-shot someone because no one plays anything but stealth archers. With swords, you right-click and occasionally block and bash, or right-click then hold the right-click again to do an attack and a power attack in quick succession, and that's about it. Many combat overhauls have toyed with the ideas that I'm about to present, so if you've heard some of these before and they don't seem original, I apologize. For archery, I imagine something like the following. An apprentice archer would have a high accuracy variation in their shots, in the form of a larger crosshair. The arrow would not always fly as far as you aim or stay on track, as the novice archer would not know how to calculate distance and wind effect properly. Of course, Bossmer would have a natural advantage here. If any of you have ever pulled a bow, then you know that pulling a bow of course drains a lot of stamina. It's very tiring, and the longer you draw, the faster you lose energy. Bow damage should vary depending on the type of bow, such as a slow or fast draw speed bow, and the type of arrow. A ranger should use a fast bow for close quarters, while an assassin uses a strong but slow bow for an assassination. And also, certain arrows should have limitations. For instance, an iron arrow should not be able to break ebony armor, or its damage should be heavily reduced. And if Bethesda adds locational damage, then arrows placed into exposed areas should provide a heavy percentage damage increase, but be hard to hit. These mechanics of course could be affected by skill level and perks, and one could choose to specialize in different forms of archery. Once again, bringing out the assassin versus close combat type of archer. In terms of melee weapons, I would like to draw a bit from the Mountain Blade Warband game. The idea here is that directional input should be considered into a slash. For instance, swinging a sword can be done by either swinging the mouse in the direction desired as you click, or by pressing a directional key such as WASD while attacking. While vanilla Skyrim has directional power attacks, they are more in line of working with certain perks and offering visual variety and smoothness, while normal attacks are just a general spam fest. Weapon swings should interact directionally with blocking and or weapon clashing, and also with locational damage. Of course, this would slow down combat, but it would do so for the better in my opinion. But if someone wanted to build a fast, spammable character that dual wields, then there should be perks that allow you to be swift by spamming keys, in turn making you lose the benefits of a directed swing. Overall, I think that this change would make it so that a fight with enemies feels more interactive and like a duel, like you're actually besting an opponent, and would make the game harder. Of course, groups of enemies would be harder to fight. For instance, if you're a rapier user, you might want to pick them off one by one, while a hammer wielder could use a directional power attack to knock the group of people down and then hammer at them. No pun intended. I must clarify that this combat mechanic may not need to be forced, and could be supplemental to making an attack or a block much more effective, as well as add more player skill ceiling which can interact with the choices made within the perks and stats. In the end, I think the base of the Elder Scrolls is roleplaying and exploration. Therefore, the current system in Skyrim isn't terrible. However, for the next game, I would love to see more depth in combat and feel like both my build choices and my skill with the blade help me overcome my foes, not just spamming dual-wielded power attacks with a weapon that was enchanted while drinking an improve enchantments by 5,000,000% potion. Anyways, please remember that this is very subjective and it is a somewhat educated opinion, that's up to interpretation, but I am no game developer, so I could have a lot of inconsistencies or things that wouldn't work. These are just ideas. Nonetheless, I would like to see your opinion in the comments below. That's all for now, have a good day and keep it fly.